Hello everyone. Saturday's Saturday. Work that magic, RJ. Make everybody's blood pressure go down. Use the power of cute and adorableness to make everyone feel better. Good boy. He's gonna make me pay for that. Bye bye forearms. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. I'm feeling a little bit better. A night's sleep, knowing that it's the weekend, I get to relax. I have been properly watered and fed, meaning that I had breakfast. And that always makes you feel better. So if everybody's doing well, I wanted to sort of briefly revisit um, a conversation that I'm having on Twitter right now, and I covered it in the last video, right? So this is Kami Carb Queen. I covered her tweets and the difference of opinion I have with her in the previous video. So I'm not gonna rehash that. Just watch the old video. But I wanted to address this. And again, I'm coming at this respectfully, that this is not meant in any way to be a dunk or insulting or anything. I just wanted to take this to sort of, give a more nuanced um, response than can be done on Twitter because of the limiting nature of a tweet. You only have so many characters, and I'm not good at haiku. But anyway, so she and I have been sort of going back and forth for a little bit, respectfully, to be fair, right? And she started talking about the way certain female characters are written, because I was like, well, the boss is a great female character from Metal Gear Solid 3, and then she said that she didn't like how she was a tragic heroine, and she felt that she deserved more, so we sort of, got into comics. And then she started talking about Jessica Jones and how she felt Jessica Jones was written differently than her male counterparts, such as Daredevil or Luke Cage, because Jessica Jones' story is a bit more personal, right? Overcoming personal trauma, right? I'm not too familiar with the character of Jessica Jones outside of the fact that she eventually gets with Luke Cage, but I do believe that she was raped or something to that effect, right? But so I responded with, well, if your concern is about a female character overcoming personal trauma, then what do you think of Jessica Cruz, right, from DC? Because her defining element of her story is that she's traumatized and she has to find the courage just to leave her apartment because she lives in this constant state of fear, right? So she responds with, not poorly at all, not I say rather not written poorly at all, Jones or Cruz. They just were written completely differently from their male counters. I love the idea of a woman overcoming her trauma, of any victim overcoming, but that leads back to not all women are victims, and I wish they weren't painted as that, right? And I responded with, there are plenty of female characters that aren't defined by being victims. Are you saying it's wrong to have stories of women overcoming being victims? Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that sort of came to me as we were having this conversation, right? Her concern, according to her tweets, seems to be that, oh, women are painted as victims and it shouldn't be that way. But if you think about it, being a victim is a unisex thing. There are plenty of male characters, famous, well-known male characters, who have been victims, whose origin stories are based in them being victimized, usually by crime. For example, Spider-Man, right? He's a victim. He's a victim of his Uncle Ben being murdered, right? And of course, his rest of his family, especially Aunt May, right? Aunt May lost her husband, right? But Spider-Man also lost his uncle and his father figure, right? And of course, the probably most famous male victim in comics is probably Batman, right? Because his parents were senselessly murdered in front of him, right? So I disagree with this idea that a victim narrative or a victim story somehow makes a character weak, whether they're male or female. The fact of the matter is that making a character a victim of something, a victim of crime, happenstance, bad luck, or anything else, is part of storytelling. usually it serves the purpose of moving the hero into the next stage, right? Because the way the hero's journey generally works is that the character is in their like normal world, their normal life, right? And then something happens, right? Something happens, usually something very bad, and that event is what moves them into the sort of second part, which is when they start entering the new secret world of the hero or the adventure or whatever it is, right? So I'm not against using or I guess you could say hurting or victimizing a character to make them move, right? Because you have to move them into the story in move them forward in the story in some fashion. You have to give them a reason why they left home. I'll use a manga example, right? Full Metal Alchemist. Ed and Al are victims. They're victims of their own hubris. They're victims of their own arrogance, thinking that they could resurrect their mother and everything would be fine. Now, what does that serve, right? From a storytelling perspective, it serves as a reason for them to now move forward in their story, right? They get grievously injured, right? Um, Al loses his entire body, Ed loses an arm and a leg, literally, but they gain the ability to, perform high level alchemy and more or less become teen geniuses. And then, of course, that moves them to restore their bodies, right? That's their main mission throughout the whole work, right? Get our bodies back, get our bodies back, get our bodies back, right? And then again, using FMA as an example, every character in that work is traumatized in some way, right? Winry's traumatized by the loss of her parents. Riza's traumatized by the horrors of war. As is Roy, as is Hughes, as is what's his face Armstrong, and many others. Izumi is traumatized by the loss of her child, right? Her stillborn baby, right? So there's always trauma. I can't think of a work where there aren't characters, male or female, that aren't traumatized. I mean, take for example, Cowboy Bebop, right? Faye's story is one of trauma, right? Her trying to learn about and recover her past and then realizing in a very painful way that she can't go home again. Her past is gone. It's literally in the past, right? It's stuck in time. And she can't go back there. Motoko Kusanagi, right? From Ghost in the Shell. She's a victim, right? She's a victim at the very least of the plane crash, right? That happened when she was a little girl, that necessitated her getting a robot body. So, and there are many, 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 many other works, right? Take for example an X-Men, right? Wolverine is probably one of the most famous victims, right? He's been victimized and used in one way or another by nearly everyone that he's ever known and trusted, right? Whether it's the X-Men, whether it's Weapon X, whether it's the Canadian military, whether it's the American military, whether it's lovers, whether it's friends, everybody's hurt this man in some fashion, right? And even in you could take something like Mortal Kombat, right? Uh, Sindel, right, was victimized. Right? She lost her world, she lost her husband, lost her daughter, took her own life because she couldn't cope. Then she gets resurrected to serve evil, right? Katana's a victim because of the fact that she was raised to believe that Shao Kahn is her father, only to learn that he's really this brutal tyrant who took everything from her, right? And then of course you have even Melina. She's a victim because people use and abuse her. Her own sister, Katana, views her as nothing more than a abomination. You can even look at a work like Gargoyles, right? Like the one person who really isn't victimized in a major way is Elisa. She comes from actually a pretty stable background. The most traumatizing thing that happens doesn't really happen to her. It happens to her brother Derek when he's forcibly turned into a gargoyle mutate. And even then, and again, I say as traumatized because, again, having your brother turned into a mutant against his own will, right? Being tricked by Xanatos is traumatizing, right? You're not experiencing, but still a member of your family, right? And this, of course, brings her to tears. And then, of course, you have the gargoyles themselves, right? Goliath and Demona in particular, right? They're both defined by pain and victimization, right? Demona's been a victim, and Demona has victimized others, right? She's victimized Macbeth. It was her actions that caused the hunters who continue to hunt her. So all of this to say that victimization in a work or a character being made a victim of some crime against them is nothing new in any work, and it happens to both sexes. I think the issue is that does that character overcome it, right? That's the thing, right? It's like the as cheesy as it is, it's like the song "Survivor" by what was it, Destiny's Child, right? I think it's one of the few hits they had before they broke up for good, right? Because being a victim, and to be clear, being a victim is by no means fun, right? Have you ever been victimized by something or someone? And I think we all have at least once in our lives. It's not fun, but the I don't want to say the nobility of it, but the strength, I guess. What what makes a character memorable is if they can overcome that victimization, right? Can they rise above it, right? Bruce, for example, could have allowed the victimization, right? Him, the death of his parents, to cause him to live this overly sheltered life where he never did anything. But what he decided to do instead was become a master detective and a master martial artist and basically take the fight on crime to crime itself, right? He decides to become this vigilante for the benefit of not just himself, but of others, because he doesn't want other people to suffer the way that he did, right? And of course, many other characters, they overcome the victimization or the trauma, right? Peter Parker becomes Spider-Man, and he decides to protect others, right? But and there are many other examples I could go over, right? But the strength and the beauty is in the recovery. It's in the overcoming. Nobody wants to be a victim or wants to see someone hurt or victimized if you're a relatively normal person. But what's really impressive is that ability to overcome, right? For example, Kitana eventually learns the truth about her heritage, and she flees from Shao Kahn, and then she raises an army. Once Sindel is resurrected, she rescues her mother from Khan's from Khan's clutches, and they together form a resistance. Right, her and Jade, they form a resistance to now fight back against their abuser. That's a theme, for example, with Ivy out of the Soul Calibur games, right? She fights back against her abusive father, Cervantes, right? So I don't view um, the victimization as this sort of woman only thing. It's like when Gail Simone or those who agree with her argue that it's the women and refrigerators trope that women are only victims to move a male character's story along. And it's like, no, there have been plenty of male characters who have been victimized to move the hero's story along, right? Batman lost his mother and his father, right? Superman lost his entire world, including his parents. And there are many, many other examples. Now, you can argue that the trope of killing someone close to the main character to make the main character move into the next step in the story progression is a played out trope. Okay, you can argue that. That's fine. But to make it a gender issue, whether it's women in refrigerators or this idea that Miss Carb Queen here floats saying, "Oh, the issue is that like not all women are victims." I think to make it, I think to make something that is unisex a gendered issue just makes it a problem that it never needed to be. I think it makes a mountain out of a molehill. You can disagree with certain archetypes or tropes being used. You can argue that it's creatively lazy. That's fine. But to argue that it only happens to women is simply, in my opinion, an erroneous argument. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the uh, next video. Have a nice weekend, and I will see you around.